You're watching the Team Nerd Tech Show with your hosts, Tim Gillen and Ruthy Kierlin.
Well, hello, nerds. Tim Gillen here, Terrapin Networks, Traverse City, Michigan. Thanks for joining us for the Team Nerd Tech Show, your weekly tech digest for the small business owner, operator, worker, person. And we do focus here, as we do every week, on the small office and their tech needs. And we have a special guest today. So let me throw this over to my trusted co-host from Queens, New York, Ruthy Kierlin. Hi, Ruth.
Hello, Tim. How are you this
Ruthy.
week?
I'm good. Thank you.
Very well.
Yeah.
With us here today, we have Steve Kiger from Rocket Source, and he is here to speak with us about ways that, well, actually, I'm going to let you describe it, Steve. How would you say that your company can, and what you know and all of your knowledge, how are you best served to help small business owners connect more with their customers?
Yeah. Hi, guys. Nice to meet you guys. I'm excited to be here. So Rocket Source, what we like to focus on is the full customer journey. And so thinking through, if you think about your customers, whether you're a small business or an enterprise or a mid-sized company, with customers today, there's so much data out there, so much content out there. And you think about, what is a traditional customer journey for your customers? They might hear about you from a Facebook ad. They're going to go to your website and do a little bit of research. They might go back to Facebook. They might go back to Google and do some reviews. They might ultimately go ask some friends or family. And then ultimately they purchase a product from you guys. And for a lot of people, they feel like that's the end of the customer cycle, but it's just the start. There's the whole other side of the customer journey funnel, which is the brand ambassador side. What happens after they purchase the product? Are they getting follow-ups? Are they going to Twitter because they're really mad or upset because something happened afterwards? And so what we like to focus on is a full customer journey, mapping it out, understanding what happens, understanding their needs and their wants and their whys, to get to a better product and service that you can offer to your customers.
Yeah, that's very good. And we talk about small offices here. A lot of what Rocket Source does now. Steve is located out in Salt Lake City. They've got offices in San Jose and Boston and Hong Kong. They're a good size outfit, and they do a lot of enterprise stuff. You've heard me use that phrase here on the Team Nerd Tech Show. That's for larger companies and larger organizations. But the issues here are very similar. Those of us who run small companies, we may use a CRM, we may use something like Act Still, anything like that, as a way to track the customer experience, referred to as CRM. You might have heard that, customer relationship management. And what Steve's outfit does here at Rocket Source is they do a lot more than just that. They kind of they take the journey right from when someone's first looking at your outfit, but long after they've maybe just bought a product or just bought a service or just signed up for whatever it is you're doing. And think that even if you have an accounting firm or if you have a small machine shop, a lot of this stuff depends on repeat business and recurring business with the same people. Now, sometimes you may only touch them once or twice a year. So how do you stay in touch in that time so that you're still the first person that they think of? And Steve's outfit's good at grabbing all that data, what they call both qualitative data and quantity, the quality of the data and the quantity both, and starting to make some sense of it. Steve, did I kind of describe that properly?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, and quantitative as well, right?
Yes, quantitative.
The data from your site, understanding your customers, where they're bouncing, where they're exiting off. And, to your point, right, there's, before I started Rocket Source, I owned my own small little creative agency, and you rely on those referrals, and you rely on the clients being happy and ultimately telling their friends and family, because everyone has, everyone needs a CPA. Right. And so it's to your point is, how do you keep them top of mind? And, for small business owners, they have such a luxury where, your clients, probably all of them very well. Yeah. And creating that personal relationship is so important. I have my mortgage guy, for example. This is a great example. He owns a country club membership. He invites me every year, and we go play golf a couple times a year. And I just referred him to my business partner to get a refinance. Just those small little things, right? To keep you top of mind when you need a mortgage or you need a CPA. It's like, I trust this guy. He's awesome, and you're gonna really enjoy it.
And so you're able to set up some ways to. Well, first off, let's take a small office that might need to maybe improve their website. Let's think about, maybe you can help us, because one of the things we discussed before we came on the air is how, even though a lot of Rocket Source stuff that Steve's outfit does is with larger companies, there's a lot of overlap. and our listeners have heard me say this here for the last year now on the Team Nerd Tech Show. A lot of the stuff that reflects into a large company is really the same for us in a small organization.
Yep.
So if I was coming to you as a small business owner, what were some of the tips that you could give me about how I talk to my web developer, or even what you folks might be able to do for us at Rocket Source?
Yeah.
What are things I should think of and be sure I'm talking to my web developer about?
And what to make sure that you have ready, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, good. Thanks,
so one of the easiest things you can do if you have a website is install, let's say, Hotjar. I'm not sure if you guys have talked about Hotjar before.
No.
It is so simple to integrate if you have WordPress or any other platforms, and they have plugins. And what that does is you can actually live record every single person that comes to your site, where they click, where they navigate, what pages they click on.
It creates a heat map,
not just a heat map, but it actually is a video recording of their mouse moving around.
Very cool.
And so you can literally see where their bounce rates are, what pages they're exiting off of, did they fill out a form? So it's a lot more robust than just like, let's say, a Google Analytics, where you can literally see every single user, where they're coming from, where they're going, where they're bouncing off. Is there frustrations, right? They're trying to add a shopping cart button and they can't get it added. You can see from that user where they came from, what kind of platform
they are. And this is an extension that you can use?
No, it's just it's a free service. It's called hotjar.com.
Okay.
And like I said, you can install it super easy. It's just a little JavaScript code that you can do through WordPress. And until you get to a certain amount of recordings, it's free. Wow. And it's such a powerful platform to really understand what are the pain points your users are going through. And then what's cool about it is you can integrate qualitative surveys on it. When someone, there's enough data out there where when someone's about to X out of a website, they go up to the top corner and click X. You can actually pop up a survey. Hey, did you find what you're looking for? Can we help you with something else? Mm-hmm. And so you can actually get some qualitative data as well to say, what are those pain points those users are having? Maybe on mobile, on Safari, there's a lot of people coming to your site on mobile Safari and they just can't click this button, right? And so all those little details, that's just a great platform.
And it'll record both the mobile and the
It will record
browser,
mobile and tablet as well.
Very cool.
So anything can come into the site and can tell you back the browser type and the machine type in that case.
Exactly. Yep.
And then it aggregates that data for you?
To a certain extent, yeah. Okay. I mean, you can export out stuff, yeah.
And you can export it out and then you can start aggregating it, right?
Exactly.
And start making sense of the... So think about that when we are to our listeners. This is the kind of thing to talk to your web developer about. Ruthy will have a link to Hotjar as well as, of course, Rocket Source on our site notes at teamnerdtechshow.com.
I will.
So we're tracking
55.
Episode 55. So we're tracking some of this as Steve's describing it to us. That is some really useful information. We find most of our customers have one of our local web developers primarily. Some people are using Squarespace or Weebly or some of those, but not very much. We find people are still using, in our little sphere, more of our local web developers, which some are just really terrific. But these are good, and some of these maybe have already done this, but this is the kind of thing you might be thinking, man, that's way more than I want to do. Well, your web developer can set it up. It can send you some simple links so that you can see some of this data. And then the two of you can kind of put your heads together for a better way to design your website that might bring some more engagement in.
And so it matches more like what of your customers' needs and what they're looking for.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, right?
And it's so insightful. It's so funny when you watch people, they'll start clicking on something. You're like, why would you click on this? But then multiple people click on you. Okay. You're like, okay, well then let's make an adjustment. There's something there. Yeah. If it's one person, it's one thing. If there's 10 people, then there might be a problem.
Right. And that tells you absolutely. That's very cool the way it could do that. What else would you recommend that people can look out for? So say they have that Hotjar there and they're looking for the next step after Hotjar, after they got that information.
So qualitative data is important. So asking survey questions, but also asking really insightful survey questions, not just like, hey, did we satisfy your needs, right? Ask them, what were those emotional triggers? What was the core reason why you purchased this product from us? Sure, there's logical, it's a price, it's whatever, but there are also, every time you purchase a product, you go through this emotional cycle where there's an intrinsic emotional response of why you purchased it. Then you go into logical, like, oh, can I afford it, right? Is this something I really need?
Okay, yeah.
And then once you purchase it, you go back to an emotional state of like, oh, I'm excited, or oh man, did I make the right decision?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's this whole cycle, and it's purchase psychologies, consumer psychology. There's a lot of studies on it. And so really trying to get to the core why of why your customers purchase from you. And first, this is really important for small businesses specifically, is when you're purchasing from a small business, you're usually purchasing from the person, right? They're trusting the person. And so really, again, going back to that customer relationship side of really getting to know your customers, understanding their needs, making sure they're met, is super important. So I think qualitative data is it's so powerful. And it's unfortunately for a lot of small businesses, they don't spend the time to really understand that. And if you do, it will pay dividends for sure.
It can be a real leg up then, obviously, can it?
For sure.
So how about from that standpoint, when you think of someone who is more in the business of professional services rather than products?
Yeah.
So if I'm selling widgets or selling T-shirts, there's not usually as much emotional, and you can correct me here, but there's not as much emotional after the fact, because I look at the T-shirt, it fits, I like it, that's the end of it. Until I put it on in a week and it splits down the middle, then I'm not going to be so happy. But I don't necessarily, I may not think of that quite so much. Whereas when I hire someone to be my accountant, my tech services provider, my web developer, once I say yes, it almost starts then, okay, did I make the right move? Is this the right person?
So what are the channels that you would recommend to keep open in order that customers feel like they can communicate with you their needs and their wants? Like, is there anything specific that you think that you should maybe say or offer so that you can make sure that there is that symbiosis between yourself and the customer?
I think a lot of it comes down to personality, right?
Okay.
I mean, as a business owner, unfortunately, you do need to be really open and really friendly and really open-minded to the needs and wants of the customer. You can't be like, nope, that's not the right way to do it. As a designer, I learned a long time ago, unfortunately, as much as they're relying on your expertise, and sometimes you just have to say, all right, I'm going to do what you want. Right. Yeah. I don't think it's the right move, but I'm going to do it. And I want to make you happy.
Right.
So I think that being flexible is super important with small service-based companies specifically, to be able to make sure that, at the end of the day, they're paying you for a service, and, make sure you deliver that.
What are good ways on the web development and the appearance and the look and feel of a website, and also maybe as it might translate into other marketing material? Mm-hmm. What are good things to be sure that a smaller company might have as words and phrases, and maybe words and phrases to stay away from?
That's a good question.
Yeah, definitely not salesy, right? Not like act now, or you're going to miss out.
Pushy.
Yeah, definitely not pushy. Be open.
But wait, there's more.
And I think ultimately, again, it goes back to, what is the core reason why someone's purchasing your product or service? Right. Is it value? Is it the customer experience? Is it you've been doing this for 20 years? Everyone has their own unique angle. Just really open, really easy to understand. Don't make it complicated for someone to reach out to you. If you're seeing a lot of people on a mobile device come to your site, make it super easy for them to call you. As simple as for some reason, a lot of websites don't have a click to call on the mobile device. Yeah. You have to copy. It's so easy to get that changed, right? Making sure, again, going back to the hot jar, watching people, they start clicking on a phone and they can't call you. That's a problem. Yeah. And it's an easy fix. So just making it easy for someone to reach out to you. And, again, just think about your own customer experiences that you have as a person. Where were those frustrations that you've had when you've tried to reach out to someone and it took 2 days for them to get back to you? Yeah. If I call someone, I want them to pick up and I want to talk to them. Mm-hmm. And so making sure, your customer experiences that you are frustrated with, make sure you don't have that with your own customers.
Just establishing that trust, I would say, from the get-go. Yeah,
absolutely. Huge.
So with RocketSource, how many years have you been doing this with RocketSource?
So we formed in 2016. Okay. So it's been about 4 years. Okay. And so we formed, so I'm on the creative side, right? Web dev, creative design, UI, UX. I do a lot of that. My one partner's in technology. He's been, ran his own dev shop for 20 years. So he's really well known in the dev side. And then our third partner is in growth and strategy. Okay. He's, ran a lot of companies. And so we formed back in 2016. We have a really nice blend of skill sets.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we overlap just enough where we're dangerous, but also we have our own unique skill sets.
Which sounds like very complementary.
Yeah.
Real quick pause while I do a little bit of translation. So for our listeners, UI is user interface.
Yeah.
UX is user experience. And that's something that web developers do and programmers do for what it's like to actually use their program or use the website. What's the experience like? What's the interface? Where do you click? And when he says dev, he's talking about development. When someone builds the website or builds an application, a program, whether it's an app on your phone, whatever, that's just referred to as doing dev. There's just a generic thing, which I throw in there every now and then.
Thank you.
What's some of the big successes that you guys have had, or what? I would imagine since 16, when the three of you really put your heads together and got this going, you've had a few, maybe not epiphanies, but a few breakthroughs that really maybe even made you slightly change the direction of Rocket Source. Is there anything like that out there you can talk to us about that might be interesting?
I think just listening to the data is the most important. Everyone's going to have their own biases when they go into a new client. We've worked with some of the largest companies out there. I obviously can't name them specifically, but large clients that every single person of you guys use every day.
Yeah, great.
And you're going to have your own internal biases because you use the product or service.
Right.
And when you start to actually look at the data and listen to the data and create impact from around that data, it's so insightful to be like, okay, as much as we think it's going to go this way, let's look at the data and actually say, no, it's actually going the other way. Yeah. And so qualitative data, again, we do a lot of survey analysis, a lot of questions, and then the quantitative data of looking at analytics and saying, what are these customers actually doing when they come to your site or your service?
And I think that means that you need to approach all of this data from a very open place, from a very
100%.
open and ready to pivot kind of a attitude. You can't go in there hoping that the data is going to reflect what you already think. You need to go in there and be open to what the data is presenting.
And you need to be very empathetic.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
That's a big part of data and in general, just being empathetic towards your customers.
What is driving people to say this? What's driving them to think this way? What's driving them to interact with us in this fashion?
Yep.
What's maybe happening on their end? And so you use a survey to maybe try to figure that out, but then you might look at the Hotjar, you might look at just raw data. But to our listeners, notice how much we're talking here about raw data. And as we go back with some of our earlier episodes, some of these cybersecurity folks we had on, so much of it was about raw data. And logging through a firewall, seeing where people are going, where these threats are coming from. So much of this stuff, any professional, just like your doctor or surgeon needs to do, might have a real hunch as what they think it is, but then they still want to see that CAT scan because they just, you can't get ahead of yourself if you're doing this kind of thing. And that's this openness that Steve's talking about, that Ruthy brought up, to just look at the data as what it is and try to let it tell you what it's there. Now, you might put your own flavor on that. That's appropriate. That's part of what you're there for. But you got to be able to interpret that data, and it starts with that raw data. And that's what Steve's talking so much about. So you have found that surveys are a good thing. People don't see them as intrusive on a website. Do you be sure to keep them real short? What's the tips there for these surveys?
Yeah. So typically you want to do it post-purchase, right? So typically you want to do it after someone has purchased a product from you. Maybe they've churned, maybe it's a SaaS-based company so that you're paying a monthly fee, and maybe they're about to churn, or maybe they have, asking them why, what did we miss? Again, back to this, if they purchased a product from you, maybe getting a super simple survey. Because let's be honest, a lot of people don't like to fill out surveys,
right?
But if something has happened, then they more likely would. So the only thing on websites typically is that we see a success of is if it's if they're selling a product on the site and they can't find what they're looking for. So they went to the product pages, they looked around, and then they ultimately are going to bounce, and you can tell they're going to, popping up a survey and say, hey, it looks like, you didn't find what you're looking for. What can we do to help?
So you can get that in the moment.
A lot of people will say, I couldn't find XYZ product. And that's really insightful data to say, oh, wow, this was really hard for them to find this. So a lot of post-purchase surveys are important. And again, depending on the longevity of a client, maybe you find a lot of people start to churn after, let's say, 12 months. Maybe ask them a question or do a survey at 11 months and see, are there things that are happening throughout that customer journey that are making them want to churn?
And sometimes we have to communicate as the professional, let's say, and something like that, back to here's why I'm asking this. And so, sometimes when people can get a feel for why you might be asking, they suddenly don't mind answering so much. It feels intrusive to you say, well, I'm doing this so I don't waste your time, because here's what happens if I go down the road. Oh, well, actually, okay, now I'll be glad to talk to you. So even a survey title can sometimes have a little bit of that as a heading, I would guess.
Yeah. And you can, I mean, even just down to the questions can skew the data when you're asking the questions, how you ask them, even down to like, are you offering them something for the survey that can skew the data? So there's a lot of things. There's a whole psychology around asking the right questions at the right time. And for a lot of your smaller businesses, obviously, I don't think they're going to need to worry about that necessarily. It's just if you think about the core reason why you ask questions is, what is the fundamental why you as a person has purchased this service or product, and getting to that core why is going to help you be able to message correctly, have the website speak the right language. It's just, you're going to get a lot of data around that.
From a standpoint of branding, and let's think of a small company and branding. And so a website obviously is right in the middle of your branding, and that's logo, colors, and your tagline, and all the things that you try to present that you want people to think of when they hear the name of your firm.
Yep.
Right. And so marketing, collateral, brochures, and so forth. Are people still doing a lot of paper brochures? What kind of thing do you see there, and how does that tie in?
Yeah, like I said, I did this for 15 years. I mean, they still work. Obviously, people like to have a physical product. They like to feel something. So there's intrinsic value with having something that you can carry with you. With this is something I personally believe, and some people might disagree with this, but my very first company I started out of high school or college actually was I did dental marketing. So I did a lot of logos and websites and all that stuff. And with color specifically, I always use this example. Some dentists hate the color red because it reminds them of blood. Okay, makes sense. Whereas other dentists might love the color red because they went to the University of Utah or Alabama, right? It doesn't really matter. A red logo on a dentist, it's not going to matter. It's personal preferences. And you're all going to have your own personal biases when you create things. And so the colors don't really matter. It's what you say, making obviously sure that it looks professional, and being very just precise and concise of what your message is. So whether you're a dentist or a CPA, just, a logo is a logo. It's not going to make someone purchase you. Now, a website needs to look nice. Obviously, it can't look like it was built in, 1999.
Front page.
But as long as, sometimes the best websites for service-based companies is just one page. Here's my services. Here's my pricing. Here's my location. Obviously, a lot of times people just want to know where the heck to find you. So maybe having the address at the very top of your website might be the most important thing. Super simple stuff, right? If I want to find you, how do I get a hold of you, and how do I call you? And for a lot of small businesses, that's really all you need.
And if you need some more in-depth stuff, have that be farther back in the website or across and if they have all of your, and easy on the white papers, but even if you bring something down concise, and by white paper, I mean a 14-page document that explains something. Most people aren't going to want or need to see that, but maybe the one-page executive review, to use that phrase, of that 14-page white paper, that's at least available for those people who want to go deeper before they contact you.
Yeah, we have something on our Rockasaurus site. So we do very long blog posts. It could take you an hour and a half to read. Very detailed, very analytical. I mean, they're massive. And what we found is we have what's called a TLDR, which is in the Reddit sphere, too long didn't read, if you didn't know. And what we found is we would put like a 1-paragraph TLDR on this entire synopsis of this blog post. And then we actually offer audio as well. And so we actually have the author of the entire blog post talk about it, talk about why he wrote this, talk about the experiences. And, they could be 2 minutes long, but for a lot of people that don't have an hour and a half to read, that is very useful.
That's very useful. Yeah. So you're really hitting the customers in all areas that they could possibly need to be hit.
So that was a fun thing. We actually built a product around that. And then just to kind of segue, we did build another product that we just are starting to launch. It's in beta right now. It's a product called Platstack, and it's a platform to stack all your links. And so for all the small businesses out there who has way too many Chrome tab browsers open at any given point, what our platform does is it allows you to take all those browsers and put them into a stack. So you might have, let's say, 10 links every day that you open up, right? It's your Google, whatever, CRMs. What our platform does is allows you to save all those links into one stack. And then with one click, you can open up all those 10 links. And then you can exit out of them or whatever it is.
That's handy.
So it's really cool. But then the other,
very handy, yeah.
So the other cool part of the product is, let's say you're doing research. And so you guys might be doing research on a competitor, or maybe launching a new product or service. What our platform allows you to do is save all that research, all that aggregate data. So it's YouTube links, it's blog articles, it's competitor websites. You can save all those links into a stack that in a week or two you can come back to that and make sure all those links are up there. So we're super excited about it.
Very handy, yeah.
And that's in beta right now, you said?
It's beta, yeah. So you can go to platstack.com. You can log in. It's a free platform. We're really passionate about it's called Stack It Forward. So for me as a designer, I get people always questioning like, hey, as a UX UI designer, how do I get started?
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is part of the platform, which we're super excited about, is aggregating or curating content for people that want to skill up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send one person one link that has the best podcasts to listen to on UX UI, the best videos to watch, the best books I've read on UX UI. So you essentially are curating your knowledge and being able to share that with the world. And we call it Stack It Forward because everyone has their skill sets. You might have a really cool hobby, right?
Yeah.
And so this allows you to aggregate all that content, no matter what it is, and be able to share that with the world. And hopefully someone finds value out of it.
In one container, one virtual
folder,
box,
basically.
but you're calling it a stack, which is a great metaphor.
So you can follow that person. If I added another link, you get notified. Hey, it looks like Steve just added another link. Check this out. My partner's dad just he'd be a very terminal cancer. And they did, again, what happens when, your father gets cancer? What do? You go to Google.
Google immediately.
You go down this massive search, right? You go down watching YouTube links and go into WebMD and go into Wikipedia. Why not store all that knowledge for someone else that's looking for that same knowledge?
Right.
And so we're super excited about the product, and hopefully your users can use it from just a utility perspective. But also maybe they're going to learn something from it.
Oh, very much so. Awesome. And again, what's the URL for that?
Yep. So it's platstack.com.
Got it.
And just remember, a platform to stack all your links.
Oh, perfect. And that's an open beta. We can go out there now and start using it. Fantastic. That means, friends, that means you're welcome to go out and start and have a look at this and see if it's something for those of us nerdy types. I'll be checking it out. I know Ruth Ann will. That's a given. We will. But for a lot of our friends and listeners who pay close attention to some of this interesting stuff we find, this Platstack is one to really check out. That sounds like
and I'll definitely have the link. Again, this is episode number 55. Yes. If you wanted to head over to teamnerdtechshow.com and look up that link.
Very good.
We'll have that, and we'll have the link for Hotjar as well. And, of course, for Rocket Source. Perfect. So you can learn about everything that we've talked about today.
Well, Steve, listen, man, it's been just terrific speaking with you. What a great bunch of info you're willing to give us.
Thank you. Very helpful for everybody listening, I know.
Yeah, we're going to keep an eye out for rocketsource.co. Again, the link will be out there.
We do have .com finally. We purchased it from someone, but we just haven't routed it over yet.
Okay, so rocketsource.com's coming, rocketsource.co. I'll tell you, this is a website with a lot of really cool info.
Yes.
It's laid out well. And this is one where you can get in about as deep and thick, including these long blog posts that Steve was mentioning, as you want. It's really,
it's a
really terrific
site.
And something worth looking back at. Yeah, it's really good. So this concept of designing your website and your information gathering of the relationship between you and your customers, you and your clients, is neat stuff, and it's technology that we're all using today. And we don't want to just let that ride. And it's, again, for our users, a great conversation to have with your web developer, whoever's helping you out right now. Steve, I'd like to give you just any closing thoughts you might have.
No, I'm a passionate entrepreneur. I've started a lot of businesses. I love small businesses. I support them. Kudos to anyone that starts their own small business. It's hard. It's rough, but just keep going.
Yep.
It's totally worth it. I haven't had a boss per se in almost 15 years, and there's nothing better than running your own shop.
Yeah, I would
it's a good
agree
feeling,
with that
isn't
too.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we started this back in the early '90s, and have been. Ruthy's my daughter, and our
Nice.
listeners know that. Apparently, Steve just.
I did not. I didn't learn that.
It's okay.
That's
it's
awesome.
different last names. It throws people off. I don't lead with it.
And Ruthy lives in
That's
New
really
York
cool,
City,
guys.
but she grew up around our family business
really cool.
here, doing small business tech support, which we've done for almost just about 30 years now. So
I would love to do a podcast with my daughter when she's older. That's awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
Really
it's
cool.
a lot of fun. I highly recommend it because she does all the work and I just show up.
Nice.
That's the really cool part.
I do all the you just all the talk, and it works out well.
Just blather, and Ruthy tells me when to stop, so it's pretty good. So that's I think the end of our show. Ruthy, do you have anything else to bring in for us?
No, I don't think so. But just again, I'll be having all the links and all this information up at teamnerdtechshow.com. And if you have any questions about what we've spoken about here today, you can always give us a call at 231-668-9175 or drop us an email at teamnerd@terrapin.tech. Thanks, guys. Have a great week. Okay.
Thanks, Ruthy and Tim.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yep.